The World Cup is on, the World Cup is on, the World Cup is on. Hello, everybody. This is a Digital Loop, Season 2, Episode 18. You might have heard that the World Cup is on. Both Ivan and myself are fans. Don't worry, we're not going to bore you with football or soccer, depending on where you live. We want to take a look about what's going on around it. But first, the Mexican is here. So hello, Ivan. How are you?
Hello, Paul. Hello, everybody. Greetings from Poland. A very happy Mexican. Mexico made it to the next round. I'm very happy. And yes, the World Cup is going on. The world is happy. The world has stopped. Everybody's staring at the TV. Everybody's staring at their phones. And that's pretty much what we're going to be talking about right now. What's the impact of World Cup, social media, and how people are communicating and integrating in this very exciting event? Yes, that's the topic today.
Ivan and myself are part of a private group, so you can see it with friends, where we've been talking about the World Cup since it started. It's obviously the biggest. It's always been one of the biggest major events in the world. I mean, of course, it gathers all the teams around the world, and all the nations are looking at football. I'm going to use the term football. Sorry for my American friends here. So obviously, it is by definition a very big event, but I think it has become as well, which is pretty normal, a major event online and obviously on social media, as we call it. Ivan's going to give you some numbers that we've both read that are really staggering, but the thing that is really impressive to me is that there's already more social activity around the World Cup than there was back in 2010. So 2010 was the latest, the last World Cup in South Africa. Actually, in March this year, there was already more stories and more interactions online on social media about the World Cup than there was for the entire World Cup last time. So you can see, and that's again almost normal. You can see the rise. And the continuing rise of social around this is like more and more people use it with all the tools that are around it. So it's really, it's completely insane. So maybe give us some of the numbers that we've read.
Now, of course, right now the tournament still is going on. So we will see how the final numbers come out at the end of the tournament. But I have numbers here for the opening week. Just in the opening week, we had over 459 million posts, likes, and comments on Facebook.
Right.
Now, just to give an idea about the scale of what we're talking about, that's more than the Super Bowl, the Sochi Olympics, and the Oscars combined. Sochi Olympics had 120, the Super Bowl 185, the Oscars 25. So right there in 1 week, it had a greater level of interaction than all the three huge other events that have been happening this year. So this again, and this is just the first week. So you can see that this is something that is really, really happening. And the article that we mentioned, they call it the biggest social media event in history. Well, that sounds kind of big, but yeah, I mean, this is big, man.
Yeah, it is huge, and I'm sure that a lot of people like me were yesterday rooting for Greece, and obviously so all the comments suddenly went about Greece. I mean, this is the thing. I mean, people really are excited. I mean, we mentioned several times that it's all about content and how content is king. And obviously, you know, football is like a Greek tragedy, and nothing to talk about the match of last night. But when I say tragedy, it's like people are following an event unfolding live in front of their eyes with absolutely no idea who is going to win. So it's really a tragedy. It's like a cliffhanger at every minute. So obviously people react very instantly. It is really fun. So you just mentioned like really big numbers. I mean, bigger than the Super Bowl, the Oscars, and the Winter Olympics combined. We're going to divide it a little bit, talking about the major platforms here. Of course, Facebook. Facebook has done some interesting stuff. If you go to facebook.com/World Cup, you'll see they've done built this trending page when you can actually. It's a user-generated page, because everybody, if you tag your post with the hashtag World Cup, or with the hashtag of a team, your post might appear here, there, and then they'll show you like all the current activity around a specific game, and then they neatly organized the games. You know, like every game has its own dedicated sub-page. There's also a map. It's very nice to see the trending map around, you know, which nations are supporting whom, because obviously people live in different nations. They might not be supporting nations they're resident in, or even simply because their nations could not qualify or was already eliminated. And I know that I live in the UK. So it's really impressive. I think a friend of mine gave me the number. I just have to read it here. I think between when the match of France versus Switzerland, another team I support obviously because it was born in Switzerland, there was 25 million interaction on Facebook emanating for 14 million people, and we're really talking about very geographically during the game. So I mean, we're really talking about very, very big numbers here. To compare that with Twitter, which we'll come back to later, Twitter for the same game only a bit less than 3 million interactions. So here it's not about making a competition of which is best, Twitter or Facebook, just to show that the scale is actually very big. The other thing. Obviously, that you can that the people know is that all the major sports stars and obviously then the football stars have their pages on Facebook, and the biggest page is obviously Ronaldo. I think Ronaldo. I think I checked, he's almost reaching like 90 million fans on Facebook. So obviously these are big numbers. All teams are using. Some teams are using that. Some others are not. And Ivan and I are very much enjoying something on there as well, which is on Messenger, so on the chat system on Facebook via your phone. You have stickers, and there are a lot of stickers that have actually appeared for the World Cup. They're very fun to use. There's even Nike sponsored stickers, and Nike is not a sponsor of the World Cup, so they don't really use that the World Cup imagery, but they've done their own stickers. So you can see that there is a lot of interest.
Yeah, absolutely. Pardon me?
Anything to add about Facebook, or go ahead?
No, I mean, something that I think you mentioned is really interesting and really nice. The fact that these platforms are developing a very nice design kind of dashboards that allow people to have the opportunity to look at the data in a very interesting and interactive way. Actually, FIFA. On its website, they have their own social.
I mentioned that FIFA is the international body that governs football, right?
Yeah.
No, sorry.
Is it the Fédération Internationale de Football Association?
You do it very well.
That's my French, by the way. And if you go to FIFA.com in their social, there is a social dashboard. You can see over there very interesting information. You have trending teams, trending players, live activity map. Global conversation on Twitter. You can see how many tweets per minute are happening on each match, etc. If you look at, for example, each player, it will show you what is the activity connected with that player, the mentions, the comments, the likes on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. So again, if you are really, really involved in this event, platforms are giving you the opportunity to really get more and more information in an easy and enjoyable way. And I think that that's really a very big step towards, again, the experience that it means the World Cup. Because the World Cup no longer is just a bunch of friends in front of a TV, drinking and watching a game. But now it's way more than that. Last night, every single game actually. I'm here in Warsaw, or last week I was in Montenegro. And I'm sitting down watching a game with Paul in London, with Ben, another mutual friend in Sweden, another friend in Spain, another friend in France, and all of us, we are together, connected together at the same time, on the same place, on our phones, on our computers, interacting, connecting, and the experience of the World Cup has become much, 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 much more enjoyable just because of that.
Yeah, I agree. The FIFA also has a pretty nifty iPhone app. That's one I'm actually using to follow the live scores. It's not as well, to be honest, done in terms of leveraging social, but we all know that it's always hard for any app to leverage social. People rather be on Facebook than be on the FIFA app. But it's a very good app. Actually, I've read that I think FIFA has more than 60 employees in Brazil actually producing content, for both the website and the app and all the properties. You mentioned Instagram. We don't have really numbers about Instagram, about how many shares. I mean, like Ivan said earlier today, some of these numbers will probably appear at the end of the World Cup, so by July 13th. But FIFA opened an Instagram account lately, and just after 2 weeks after the launch, it already had more than 500,000 followers. So there's really big interest here. So continuing on the platforms, because as Ivan said, there's this interest. The platforms have enable you to be all together and follow all these guys. Twitter obviously is the other one. So I just mentioned Facebook. Twitter already said back in 2010 that the World Cup was the largest period of sustained activity on Twitter. So already 4 years ago it was. So you can only imagine that this time around it's even bigger. And Twitter actually did some interesting stuff around there. So they also, of course, use a lot of user-generated content. If you've been on the iPhone app or the Android app, you can see actually. You can enable a tool that allows you to follow trends around the game. They use hashtags around it. So each team has a hashtag. For Greece, it was GRE, for instance. These are the official three-letter code from FIFA. So you can actually follow the games like this. And you can see a lot of pictures, a lot of tweets and reactions. It's pretty well done. Again, it's user-generated, but it's really built into the app, built into the web properties as well. And Twitter went as far as to create, they called it hash flags. So every time you put one of the hashtag of a team, it gives you a little flag, so it makes it even more kind of more lively in that you're watching the game. They went a bit further than creating just a user-generated page. First of all, they had a fun game. I don't know if you've seen that, Ivan, the World Cup of tweets. So they actually created like the whole charts of the World Cup, with all the rounds to the final, and it was because of the amount of tweets, so the amount of noise, who would be in the final? So who are the most vocals? And currently it's still Spain versus Brazil, and of course we know that's another team that was. But I mean, it's fun. The other thing that I really loved, and you've probably seen it, is all the visualizations that were created by Twitter. So Twitter used CartoDB, so you can see how a game unfolded on a map of the world, and you can see spots of a heat map, basically spots of user-generated trends going live, and you can rewatch that after the game. Of course, it's fast forward. You don't have to sit through 90 minutes to actually watch the entire thing. It's really amazing. I mean, during the USA, Portugal, you were like, these spots were going all over. Of course, the US, South America, obviously in Europe, some in Japan. It was, I mean, we'll put the links on the show. There's really cool maps being done. You can see that this is more than just presenting content from Ivan and myself just tweeting about stuff. And I know, and I'm sorry for those who are following me, I've been tweeting sometimes. I cannot resist tweeting about that World Cup. So that was one thing. There's another, they've done other small visualizations. I've noted one here. So there was like when Clint Dempsey is a U.S. Soccer player, football player, when he put the goal against Portugal. So they made also a visualization, a timeline of mentions of Clint Dempsey, either his handle or just the term Clint Dempsey, and you can obviously see like a trend map. Suddenly, whoa, when it puts a goal, that goes to, I wrote it down here, there was more than 80,000 tweets per minute, and overall it was about 500,000 tweets around his name. So they created these type of visualizations that are very entertaining to watch, and actually made a lot of websites are using them to actually create their own content. It's really pretty cool. I'm sure you've seen them, right?
Yeah, I've seen them. And talking about visual content, there is no better visual content in the world today that memes of Mexico's coach Miguel Herrera. This is something that is. I was reading the Wall Street Journal has an article on Miguel Herrera's reaction, and it's fascinating to see how again the creativity of people all over the world sharing these memes and sharing all this information is fascinating. Yeah.
You give me a great point to actually follow on Google, because Google's done also stuff. It is actually very interesting because they went a little bit further than the others. I'll let you in a minute. But so they created these Google Trends. You probably know Google Trends. You can go look up terms, see how they're trending worldwide, and it gives you some kind of feel and pulse of the world. And so they dedicated a special Google Trends page for the World Cup. What is actually interesting, and before I go to the Mexican coach, what is absolutely interesting here is that Google doesn't usually do original content. Google is really a data company that presents you with data and just says, okay, there was like a million searches about Ivan Hernandez, and thus Ivan Hernandez is trending. But this time, they actually partnered, and I know that with RGA, so it's an advertising company, they actually created they create original content. And that's pretty rare. They kind of become type of a newsroom. Similarly, that we just mentioned, Ivan just mentioned FIFA being a bit of a newsroom by creating content for their properties. Google is doing a bit of the same. So why the coach? So I've put it down, and I'm sorry for those who are watching the show. I'm looking at my notes. I don't want to say something, but so they created a lot of trends in different buckets. So there's a national sentiment. So you can go for each game. And for this one, I've taken U.S. versus Portugal. You can say the sentiment. So they analyze Google Plus posts. I know some people will say there's nothing happening in Google Plus, but that's enough still to actually create. So Google sentiment, say, okay, how people feel, how they feeling. So for instance, the US was feeling optimistic, and Portugal was feeling lucky. And you can see that these kind of trends are interesting. Then there was a world focus. So how many searches for each team in the world? I mean, this is overwhelmingly poor US. I think it was almost 90% US trends searches for the US. The top questions, and I love that because so they took questions that have been asked during the game, and what are the top questions asked about the game. So, and I just took 3 out of the. So there was who's Ronaldo girlfriend? Yeah, well, sorry, but that's actually, this is where it's actually funny, but this is what people were asking live on Google, searching on Google search. How long is a soccer game? So you can actually see that, you know, still people are educating themselves, especially in the US, about the length of a soccer game. How long is a soccer game, Ivan?
How many quarters?
Good answer. And where can I watch Portugal's goal against the US? So again, like rewatching. I mean, and then there's something called people of interest. People of interest kind of tells you where are the most popular individuals per nation. So again, by search volume. So in that case, it was Dempsey for the U.S. I mentioned it for Twitter earlier, and Ronaldo for the Portugal. And
I thought Ronaldo's girlfriend.
and then they do something that's called on the rise. I have it here somewhere. So they actually look at people that suddenly got a lot of. They took the baseline of how many searches they usually get, and suddenly there's a surge of searches for that person during a game. And this is where your Mexican coach appears, because if you go to the match, for Mexico that was played, it's not obviously Portugal versus the U.S. I think Miguel Herrera told like 5x or 6x. Everybody was looking for him. Who is that guy? And looking for images and stuff. So it's actually fun. I mean, it's not always completely, you know, again, it's some of them it's more entertaining than actually useful. But I mean, Google really went behind it all and created. And on top of that, sorry because I'm babbling here. On top of that, they actually create content as well. So now you can go back to Google Trends and the World Cup. I see google.com/trends/World Cup, and you can see each of the games that have already been been played have their own dedicated page with some. You can see there's the involvement of RGA, so of an advertising a company that actually creates content, because it's really well done. There are infographics that I think they said it takes an hour to do each infographic. So it's really well presented, and I think it's really interesting. So here you go. I mean, I love this coach. I mean, we had so much fun with Ivan and the rest of the group. We're talking about football, about him, and I'm very glad you've been qualified, because that means we're going to keep seeing him more and more. So sorry for that.
I'm proud. Yeah, I mean, but something that you mentioned is I think this is a good connection with the element of advertising. We see brands again sort of hijacking the event. Brands like Beats by Dre, I don't know if you're familiar with what happened. They right before the beginning of the World Cup, they put a really cool ad. It was like a 5-minute ad with some of the major stars like Neymar and Suarez and Chicharito, Hernandez, and the video was fantastic. It was awesome. There was a lot of people sharing it. But what's interesting is that a lot of players were wearing those headphones. And as some of you might know, Sony is actually the sponsor of the World Cup. So actually, FIFA banned players from wearing their Sony their Beats by Dre headphones, because all of them they got Sony headphones, but they are not wearing them. So right now there is a situation that every time a soccer player, a football player is spotted with the Beats by Dre headphones, it's kind of like, wow, it's like extra advertising because they shouldn't be able to do that. And it's interesting that this is happening, that the main sponsors, they're paying a lot of money to get there, but at the end of the day, the decision is not based on advertising. And what's interesting again is the value of advertising, of putting your logo in front of it on your screen for 90 minutes of a game, can go completely away with a picture of your favorite team player wearing a specific set of headphones or a hat or something.
Yeah, this is. I mean, that allows me to talk, because advertising, and I know we're running a bit out of time, let's go on because for more 2 minutes. Advertising is obviously a huge thing during the World Cup. It's always has been. And this advertising hacking, in a way, is actually very, very interesting, because nobody can actually own football. You can own the World Cup and delimit, but obviously online you cannot really own football. So there are a lot of people. I mentioned the Nike stickers on messengers. Stuff like that is being done. Actually, to realize the power of social, I think Ronaldo. I didn't write it in my notes, but Ronaldo tweeted about the Nike a new Nike ad that he had done, and as soon as he tweeted it, I think the Nike ad it was on YouTube, obviously, and as soon as he did it, I think the ad went like from, I don't know, 100,000 views, or like, I don't remember the number, like millions. I will find out the next time you speak, and I'll go quickly on Google. But I mean, there's a real power here, and obviously Nike is not a sponsor. That allows me to talk about a little bit of advertising very, very quickly, because the spend in 2010, the ad spend on digital as a whole, only social, was only 20%. And actually, Adidas, which is one of the main sponsors for the World Cup, and whilst they didn't actually revealed any numbers yet, they said that they're going to spend more on digital and more on social than they're going to spend on TV. So that's a very big shift in 4 years. They're actually spending a lot more now on social and on digital. And we know that the World Cup TV ad ad spend in the world for this World Cup will be around $2.5 billion. So we're talking, when Adidas does that shift, it's really like a massive amount of money that suddenly goes to digital. So this is something I know that Ivan is very passionate about, because he's been working with all those agencies and consulting with all those agencies and big brands, and they still have the mentality is stuck, and you can see that finally something is kind of giving in here for this one. Let's not, because we're running out of time, very quickly I wanted to mention China, because in terms of advertising it's very, very interesting. Mercedes and BMW, which are obviously two car makers and are usually competing against each other, none of them are actually, of course, official sponsors for the World Cup. They've actually made some stuff together in China to support a German team. So it was "We are one team," and they put like pictures of both cars on Weibo, which is, to make it simple, the Twitter of China. So this is really fun. But I believe that China is a very big missed opportunity by FIFA and by most of the national teams, because almost none of them, and I went to try to look, because currently I'm doing some research for a client, nothing to do with football, about China. And I quickly did some research that there's almost nothing done officially. There's a lot of accounts being created, and just one number: in the first 2 hours, of the World Cup, there was already almost 100 million interactions around the World Cup. Of course, with the massive scale of China, and on Weibo. So with the massive scale of China, you can just imagine how many people are actually interested in football. And neither FIFA nor the official teams, not a lot of sponsors are actually active there. And I think it's a very, very big missed opportunity for them, and also for the stars. Ronaldo, to come back on him, or Messi, which is another very famous player from Argentina. I think Messi has almost 20 million followers on Tencent, and Ronaldo also 10 million. So people are already big. It's just a bit sad that they're actually now leveraging that in China. And to finish with Asia, I also looked quickly at, because we keep mentioning the big ones, at what the other social networks were doing, and actually they're not doing that much. Just Line, that we mentioned a few episodes ago, is actually doing some stickers for the World Cup that are pretty funny, and there were some competition, but nothing really big. So you can see that most of the action still happens. So maybe a very westernized, I don't know how you call it, how to call it, a focus event. So it's really Twitter, Facebook, and Google are the three main ones. And I'm sorry for my big rant. I think I talk too much. Ivan, your turn.
Yeah, no, basically, like I mentioned before, we are seeing a shift. We're seeing a shift on. We've been seeing a shift of attention for all these years, but it's really interesting. And again, I'm glad and I'm very happy to see that the level of social interaction is growing. That platforms are making easier for people to interact, to connect. Because at the end of the day, football is about passion. It's about getting together. It's about being happy for your team, being sad together if your team loses, and all these platforms allow us to really have a deeper connection. And I think that this is what, at the end of the day, is going to be more memorable than just watching the game on a screen. So on that, I think we can wrap up.
Yeah, totally. I mean, the only thing more memorable than that will be obviously the Piojo passion. So
yeah.
The passion around
Miguel Herrera celebrating a goal. Let's hope, for the sake of humanity and for the sake of human race and social media, that Mexico makes it to the final. Because imagine if Mexico goes to the final and scores a goal. Imagine Piojo Herrera's reaction. That would be priceless.
And on that, guys, see you next week. Bye, Ivan.
Bye-bye.